So today I'm going to say a few words, and we also have joining us Dr. Pam Wright from UNBC and Dr. Fredeen, who are also going to say a few words. And then we are honored to have Kym Gouchie here as well, who's going to wrap it up for us today. Also, before we get started, I want to mention that April 28th, which is next month, is the National Day of Mourning for workers that have been killed on the job. We're not meaning to draw attention away from this important date with the theme of our event today, and I will be observing that important date next month, especially for forestry workers killed on the job. So to those who may not know, Conservation North is a volunteer-based group pushing for protection of old-growth forests in our region and a transition to second-growth forestry. Today's event was inspired by three things: the BC Forest March, which happened last Friday, two professors who approached me about the Scientists' Rebellion, which is an international event, and the International Day of Forests, which happened on the 21st. So all of these events happen within a week of each other, so we decided to hold our event today. So we're gathered here today to mark the death of leadership on old-growth forests and the loss of our natural heritage as a result. It is a closed casket event because Premier John Horgan's leadership on old-growth protection has crashed and burned, and it's not a pretty sight. This is our leadership casket right here. It's been 6 months since Premier Horgan made an election promise to implement the recommendations of his own old-growth panel, who said that logging should be deferred in all high-risk old-growth forests within 6 months. This has not happened. Here, nothing has happened. And we're all wondering why. Well, what we do know is that we are regularly fed information that is not accurate about our primary forests and which serves to uphold the status quo. This misinformation comes from the upside-down world of powerful lobby groups like the Council of Forest Industries, the Forest Products Association of Canada, and the companies they represent. So to address this misinformation, I would like to play a game with you all called Call the Baloney. I usually use a less polite word for baloney. So this involves a little bit of audience participation. So this is how it works. I'm going to make a series of statements, and then you're all going to call baloney loud enough for the folks in the building behind us to hear it. Does everyone get it? Yeah. Alrighty, here we go. Forestry is currently protecting biodiversity in our old-growth forests. Baloney! Old forests are not living, complex, interconnected systems. They are fiber. Baloney! We are renewing and restoring old forests by logging them and replacing them with plantations. Baloney! Industrially logging old growth and primary forests is good for the climate and protects carbon stores. Baloney! Industrially logging beetle-killed and burned forests helps wildlife and the climate. Baloney! Old growth is a renewable resource. Baloney! Natural forests need to be managed industrially, or else really bad things will happen. Baloney! Converting primary forests into pellets helps us achieve global climate change targets. Baloney! And finally, and this has to be the loudest one, forestry in BC is sustainable. Baloney! Thanks, everybody. So what I'm about to say now is not baloney, it's a fact. So BC is still issuing cutting permits for forests that are 350 years old plus in the less productive spruce old growth forests in our region. The industrial forestry sector lobbies the Premier's office in order to protect their entitlements to these irreplaceable forests. A company that operates locally, their name starts with a C and ends with an R, who are logging a lot of our last old growth, tripled in size in BC between 1980 and 2010, while reducing their number of employees by half over that time period. The same company recorded $574 million in profits in 2020, according to the Prince George Citizen. The rate of logging in BC has stayed the same since 1990, according to Stats Can, while the number of jobs associated with the forest industry has declined over that period. The number of jobs per tree cut continues to shrink. According to an analysis done last year by Focus on Victoria, BC taxpayers subsidize forest companies operating in BC to around $365 million a year. What I want to know is, why isn't this money going towards communities, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to help us transition away from old growth logging and towards sustainable logging of second growth? The BC government has utterly failed at doing what they said they would do in a timely way, and the chance of a positive transition is being undermined every day. We all know that time is running out for old growth. A transition to logging that is focused on second growth is inevitable. The question is whether we would do it before or after we've lost all our wild places. We need to keep the pressure on Premier John Horgan and Minister Katrine Conroy, and in order to be heard in Victoria, we need to be loud. Thank you for being here today and making your voice heard, everybody. I'm going to ask Dr. Pam Wright from the University of Northern BC to come up and speak today. As I mentioned, our event today was inspired by a couple profs who told us that it was the Scientist Rebellion Week, which is an international week where we draw attention to the loss of biodiversity and climate change. And of course, forests and climate are very closely linked. Thank you, Pam.
Good afternoon, folks. I'd like to just start by acknowledging that we're meeting today on the traditional territory of the Lheidli T'enneh Nation, and I thank them for their leadership in conservation. We all celebrate the ancient forest several times a year. Probably you wander out there, and Lheidli are doing many other activities to work on conservation throughout their territory. So I'm Pam Wright. I'm a conservation scientist at UNBC, and my work focuses on large-scale conservation and how climate change factors into that, and how we can protect our landscapes now, but also for a future that we don't quite yet know what it will look like. Politicians, developers, and our own human demands, absolutely, have created an environment, and here in northern BC in particular, and particularly in the Northeast, that's dominated by a massive industrial footprint. And while I want to definitely call out the government, and will, on some things today, I also want to give an opportunity to illustrate some hope that there is a possible way forward here. I think if we spend all of our time talking about the doom side of the equation, it's hard to figure out where to move forward. So I want to talk in particular to illustrate the points about the value of forests here, and of old forests in particular, about that stretch of forest that runs from Kakwa to our east and all the way up to the Muskwa-Kachika in the north of the province. So running on that kind of, that angle up through there, the spine of the Rockies, if you'd like. It's a perfect example to illustrate some of these issues. And the issues and the importance of old growth and the complexities of being a resource-dominated region, and some of the incredible benefits that those bring. So these lands are characterized by these old forests, spectacular geological features, diverse alpine meadows, and mighty rivers like the Murray, the McGregor, the Pine, and many, many others. They support more than 7 red-listed, 30 blue-listed species, and innumerable cultures and traditional practices from time immemorial. And they provide precious drinking water for our communities, rich agricultural land off on the slopes, and places for us to recharge and recreate. And yet that little critical habitat that remains is at risk of further fragmentation and destruction. It's happening on a daily basis. And while resource extraction jobs have definitely fueled our economies, there's a significant imbalance between the development and the need to maintain healthy lands and wildlife populations. And the BC government continues to push catastrophic, unwanted and unneeded mega projects like Site C Dam, continues to authorize forest harvesting in mature and old forests, and has been dragging its feet on endangered species action and protection. And here's the hope. Across Canada and northeastern BC, Indigenous nations are leading efforts to try and reverse these trends. These are not insignificant initiatives, but we're overlooking them. Last year, the West Mowbray and Saulteaux nations, just to our north, signed a Caribou partnership agreement with the provincial and federal governments, initiated by the nations, that this June will see the expansion of Clinsizah Provincial Park from 30,000 hectares to over 200,000 hectares. And there is additional protected areas of 2 million acres of caribou habitats that is part of that partnership agreement. And that represents a significant advancement for conservation in the spine of the Rockies here, north of us, and an opportunity to protect an endangered species and cultures and places that are very important to us. These and the other heroic measures of those nations in caribou recovery are definitely helping lead the way, but there's more work to be done. So I'd like to specifically call out the BC provincial government to immediately stop harvesting mature and old forests today. I want them to take action on endangered species and call them to support and center the leadership by Indigenous nations in taking bold conservation actions. To our north, as an example, and there are many more, the Kaska Nation have a proposal for Dene Kekusan, a massive Indigenous protected and conserved area in rich old forest environments. The Seke Dene peoples to our northwest have a proposal for the Injanika, Indigenous protected and conserved area, again, invaluable, biodiverse, culturally rich old forest. Many other nations have similar proposals. They've done the work, they've developed that work, and the government to date in BC has refused to enter into negotiations with them to recognize those areas. These are win-win opportunities for the nations, for us, for the fight for old forests. They're also an incredible opportunity for us as a nation to make advancements on our commitments of protecting 25% of the country by 2025 and 30 by 30. And yet few of those initiatives have received any government support. So to the Premier and Cabinet, it's time to take action towards a just and equitable transition to a green economy. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Pam Wright from UNBC. So next up, we're going to hear from Dr. Art Fredeen, who is a professor at the University of Northern BC, and who I had the pleasure of hearing on CBC Daybreak North this morning. Welcome, Art.
Well, two tough acts to follow here. Really nice, those comments, and I'm going to be a little more esoteric. I'm a scientist, so I usually talk numbers and facts and charts, and I'm going to do something a little different. But I wanted to say, draw your attention to this here. Rob created this, Rob and Judy, maybe both. But please have a look at it. They're doing some incredible work on their own time, on their own dime, doing research and looking at what's left of old growth, and it's not much around here. So here, I'm going to get a little esoteric. So one of my favorite books at this point in my life, and I hope I have many years left, is Wolf Willow. I don't know if any of you have ever read that book. It's a childhood memoir of Wallace Stegner, living his childhood years in southwest Saskatchewan. And I also grew up in that province. The book is beautifully written and expresses, I think, a love for the land that all of us have. Its wildness, and notably for its time, it's ahead of its time in recognizing Canada's Indigenous peoples and cultures that occurred in that part of Saskatchewan. They're still poorly appreciated in Saskatchewan, I can tell you. And so a slight break here in my comments, and that is, I am so grateful that things are changing. Oh, thank you. I know they're slow in changing, but they are changing, and I think this recognition of Indigenous culture, language, their rights and title is one of the most phenomenal things. And I look forward to that continuing. And probably once a week I get down to the confluence of the Nechako and Fraser and think about the Lheidli T'enneh. And what a privilege it is to live on these lands. So over a 60-year career, back to my story here, Wallace Stegner wrote 60 books of fiction and nonfiction. That's one a year. And really came to be known as the Dean of Western Writers. I know this is a long time ago for many of you out there, especially the younger folks, but really a significant writer and worth reading. Now this next section of the letter that I'm going to read is the part of it that is I think one of the most cited environmental quotes in North America, and one that has meant a lot to me. He writes, "Something will have gone out of us as a people if we ever let the remaining wilderness be destroyed. If we permit the last virgin forests to be turned into comic books and plastic cigarette cases. If we drive the few remaining members of the wild species into zoos or extinction. If we pollute the last clean air and dirty the last clean streams and push our paved roads through the last of the silence so that never again will we be free in our own country from the noise, the exhaust, the stinks of human and automotive waste. And so that we can never again have the chance to see ourselves single, separate, vertical, and individual in the world, part of the environment of trees and rocks and soil, brother and sister to the other animals, part of the natural world, and competent to belong in it. Without any remaining wilderness, we are committed wholly, without chance for even momentary reflection and rest, to a headlong drive into our technological termite life, the brave new world, of a completely human-controlled environment. We need wilderness preserved, as much of it as is still left. This was 60 years ago. And as many kinds, because it was the challenge against which our character as a people was formed. The reminder and the reassurance that is still there is good for our spiritual health, even if we never once in 10 years set foot in it. It is a good for us when we are young because of the incomparable sanity it can bring briefly as vacation and rest into our insane lives. It is important to us when we are old simply because it is there. Important that it is simply, that is simply as an idea. We are a wild species, as Darwin pointed out. Nobody ever tamed or domesticated or scientifically bred us yet. But for at least 3 millennia, we have been engaged in a cumulative and ambitious race to modify and gain control of our environment. And in the process, we have come close to domesticating ourselves. Not many people are likely anymore to look upon what we call progress as an unmixed blessing. Just as surely as it has brought us increased comfort and more material goods, it has brought us spiritual losses, and it threatens now to become the Frankenstein that will destroy us. One means of sanity is to retain a hold on the natural world, to remain, insofar as we can, good animals. We still have that chance more than many peoples. For while we were demonstrating ourselves the most efficient and ruthless environment busters in history, and slashing and burning and cutting our way through a wilderness continent, the wilderness is working on us. He ends by saying this: these are some of the things wilderness can do for us. That is the reason we need to put into effect, for its preservation, some other principle than the principles of exploitation or usefulness or even recreation. We simply need that wild country available to us, even if we never do more than drive to its edge and look in, for it can be a means of reassuring ourselves of our sanity as creatures, a part of the geography of hope. Very sincerely yours, Wallace Stagner. So, to conclude, I want to thank you for coming today. And I want to thank especially Michelle Connolly and all the folks from Conservation North that helped put this together. The stakes are high. The BC government needs to act quickly on the recommendations of the Old Growth Strategic Review Panel's report. There is so little left, and some of the data that Rob has up here will demonstrate that. There is so little. These ancient ecosystems are, yes, a non-renewable resource. We will never see them again. They are primary forest, never touched by the chainsaw. And I believe they represent the vital limbs of our geography of hope in this province. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Dr. Art Fredeen from the University of Northern BC here. Again, thanks everybody for coming. We're gonna end today with an inspiring local Lheidli T'enneh artist named Kym Gouchie. She is an ambassador for local culture, and she's also a part of the Ancient Forest Working Group. I would like everybody to welcome Kym Gouchie. Howdy, everybody. I want to start with something here that Dr. Art, is it? Touched on a little bit, and I thought how absolutely relevant. This is an old Cree proverb. You may have heard it before. Only when the last tree has died and the last river been poisoned and the last fish been caught will we realize we cannot eat money. And I feel that we are all here, yes, we're all here because we are the voice of those who cannot speak. We are the voice of the rivers, of the fish, of the ancient forests, of the sacred ones. They are our grandparents. In my culture, the ancient ones are our grandparents. They have been here since time, forever. They are primal forests, as Dr. Art said. And I'm here holding space for my grandchildren and my grandchildren's grandchildren, for the people to be. That is why I'm here. That is why we're all here, I'm sure of it, is for future generations, that hopefully our government will wake up and realize that they cannot eat money. We cannot eat money. I want to share a song that is going to help lift all of our spirits. It will anchor us in the now and help us to move forward. It is a song that has been composed by myself and my late grandmother, Mary Gouchie, and it is I will, I can, and I am. Let's say that. I will, I can, and I am.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Kym. I wanna say thanks to everybody who came out today. This is our last chance to fight for old growth, and Conservation North is going to be at it for the long haul. So thank you for coming out today on your lunch break. Sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already yet, and fill out the Take Action letter and send it to the Premier, your MLA, and the Minister of Forests and the Minister of Environment if you haven't done so yet. Our sign-in sheet is just at the red table. Thank you, everybody.